Yep.
All right.
So,
How you doing, Jaden?
very good. Thank you for watching. My name is Jaden Buckles. I run the Waupun Pioneer News, and we're doing another interview with Mayor Rohn Bishop. We're going to be talking about the upcoming budget for next year for the city of Waupun. So, Mayor Bishop, why don't you give us a little bit of an update about how you're working on the budget and what you hope to get included and how it's looking right now?
Well, I'm kind of excited about this year's budget. I think we have this year in between a couple of tougher years where we can actually accomplish a few things and knock them off of our list. So stuff that I'm thinking about, like this budget, we can take the opportunity to tuck point the wall at the Historical Society, fix the roof, maintain that old Carnegie Library. It's 100 and some years old, right?
Yep.
And the Historical Society's in there. When we get bad weather out of the west, they're having issues of rain, water getting into the building. We don't want that to continue. We can maintain that building. Over here at City Hall, we can take some of the money and, we can get the roof fixed up, which is something important to do to maintain and keep this building for the long term. And then the other things I want to really do with this budget, it's time we close out the ARPA funds. We've been doing that for a couple of years now. As most of your readers may remember, we spent a good chunk of the money on the roof at the safety building. The fire chief walked in there one day this spring. One of the garage door openers was laying almost on top of a fire truck because we had a water leak. So we had some rotted wood, replaced all of that. There were some leaks on the police department side too, so that building is fixed up. The roof is good for quite a while now. And then we invested in the local daycare. We want them to expand and grow, help get some of the kids off the waiting list for childcare, because quality childcare in our city is very important to have a good workforce, especially for female employees, because it's the moms who a lot of times have to figure out what to do with the kids, and we want to help them as much as possible. So then with the remaining ARPA funds, which is about $258,000 plus the interest it made, which comes out to $70,000. I want to take $100,000 of that and put it towards, hockey, but it goes to the Waupun Community Center. Help them with a donation of the ARPA money to that, and saving the hockey rink, the ice rink. That saves hockey, and it saves figure skating and open skating for the community. Waupun has a long tradition of hockey at many different levels, high school, all the way down, and even older with some of the adult leagues that have come and gone. Figure skating is huge, the ice show is huge. Hockey hosts multiple tournaments throughout the year, brings people into the city. They spend money here, they go out to eat. A lot of people spend the night, which means they pay room taxes to our city. So it's important that continue. And then $100,000 to baseball. The turf that was put in about 12, 13 years ago now, it's starting to wear out. You could see it a little bit this year. So in a few years, we can have that donation to go towards keeping the baseball turf. Without that turf, we're not allowed to host tournaments. Like, we could put in grass and dirt, old school, right? But it's not free. It sounds like it's free, but it's not. We still have to mow it. We have to chalk it. We have to paint it. That turf they have out there on the infield is pretty much just, it takes care of itself. It absorbs the water. It does a good job in rainstorms. And because of that turf, it allows us to host multiple tournaments throughout the year from June all the way through August, thanks to Legion Baseball and others. So again, it's people in our city spending money, going to hotels, room tax funds, so we can help hockey, baseball, long term. The hockey thing is probably another 50 years of the ice rink. Baseball gives us another 20, 25, the turf. Then the remaining amount of money, I want to create like a youth sports grant program. And what will happen is all the different youth sports in Waupun can apply for money if a need arises. One example I like to use is Waupun softball fields at Meadema Fields. The scoreboard, it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Maybe that thing needs to get fixed. That's where they could go to get a grant or some money to help toward fixing things. So then that fund can carry out several years down the road to help all of the different youth sports. So that's kind of what I'm excited about with this budget. Knocking some stuff off the list. Investing in the Carnegie Library, fixing up City Hall as much as we can, and then youth sports and making sure Waupun has a high quality of life. And that's kind of what we can do with this budget. There's bigger issues moving out into the future. The fire truck, showers for firefighters. What do we do with the fire department with staffing needs? But this 1 year, we have an opportunity to take care of some things, and I'm excited to do it.
Absolutely. So this came
I
up.
talked too long, didn't I?
No, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
It was perfectly fine. I did have a couple more questions. Of
Sure.
course, we had the city council meeting on Tuesday where we discussed a bit about the budget, and the city council gave their feedback on the plan that you proposed. So
It was pretty positive.
yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about their reaction to it and how you feel about it?
I thought their reaction was really positive. Alderman Matischek, for example, said, I agree with the mayor. Let's check some things off the list. Alderman Kizmarski had a very similar approach. He mentioned he came down on his own time because Pete puts a lot of time into being alderman. He takes it seriously. He came down and he saw pictures of the Historical Society Museum, which is city owned in the old Carnegie Library. And he's like, yeah, it needs help. The mayor's not wrong. He was pretty supportive. Alderman Severs, Coons, like I think her nieces do something with ice skating. So like, I felt like I had momentum on the council that night that they tweaked my ideas a little bit and moved a few dollars around, but for the most part, we're on the same page. We want to help youth sports. It's a quality of life thing that makes Waupun a great community to live in, and we can take care of a couple of our old buildings. Like, if we weren't investing in our Carnegie Library or the City Hall, which are two older buildings, they're going to cost more to invest in because they're older buildings. But we need to do that because if we leave this building to go build something new that's more economical, how do we thank a downtown business owner who sinks their own money into saving an old historic building if we're not willing to do it ourselves? The city has to lead by example. We have to invest in the Carnegie Library. We have to invest in Waupun City Hall and keep these wonderful buildings going forward because the community loves them. City Hall was built in 1928, remodeled in 1988, and I don't think a lot of people know the history. Like, the police department and the fire department used to be here where we're sitting on the lower level of City Hall. And there was a jail in here, and that's all before my time. But it's a neat building. We have a sculpture out in front. We want to make sure we maintain this. And like, Waupun is a cool little city. Sometimes it's not cheap to do all of this, but it's cool to be Waupun.
So there's another issue that recently came up. The prisons have not connected to city water, and they're currently constructing a new water treatment facility on the other side of the railroad tracks. To my understanding, they didn't even contact the city when they started construction. Is that true, and what's the situation around that?
Well, that is true. They told us they can do whatever they want, and they're the state, so they probably can. Anyone else would have to run through the Waupun Planning Commission and get permits and all of that. I think the state's also making a mistake in wasting taxpayer money. Waupun, as I talk about all the time, has the best drinking water in the state of Wisconsin. The prisons do not. In fact, if the prison water was served to a school, there'd be protesters. There's little pieces of rust floating in it. The radium numbers are really high, but the state never wanted to pay for Waupun water because it was just cheaper to have their own well water. And the state can't keep doing that because you just can't give people bad water. But instead of hooking up to the city of Waupun water, which they could have easily done, it's all ready to go, they decided to build their own water treatment plant and do their own thing, which they can do. They're the state, they can do anything they want. But I think they made a mistake there because we would have sold them the water at a bulk rate because we would have had to. They would have had higher quality water for the people who live there and work there. But at least they're doing something because the water they were serving people was almost undrinkable. And what's weird about this job, I've actually gotten letters from inmates who live in there like, this water's terrible. I'm like, well, my water's not terrible, your water's terrible. So that wasn't the city issue, that was a them issue. But yeah, they didn't tell anyone. So when they started construction on Walker Street, I got some phone calls on what was going on. And I actually had to make some calls and follow up because I had heard they were thinking about doing it, but didn't know for sure that they were doing it. They didn't tell us when they were going to start a project, and they just started it.
Mm-hmm. And how might this impact the shared revenue MSP payments to Waupun?
The water plant itself doesn't impact it at all. And on our shared revenue side, the state legislature gave us a boost of about $638,000, which we desperately needed. The MSP payment's something different, and that stands for Service Provider. Or Municipal Service Provider. And what that means is the prisons and the state-owned property, whether it be the prisons, the prison power plant, the lot where they're building the water plant, the prison pharmacy, some of the farmland that's in the city, those entities don't pay property taxes to the city. They're tax exempt. So one of the things they would do is give us an MSP payment to help offset some of the costs that we as a city entail to provide them services, namely fire and ambulance. And they've been underfunding us for a long time according to the, what's the word I'm looking for? The graph what they claim it should be. So we were using that number, or the metrics, that's the word. The metric plan that they'd been underfunding us for a long time. I was blowing the whistle on that in this last budget cycle. We did good on the shared revenue side, but we learned with this current budget a couple weeks ago, they're gonna cut us almost $20,000 on the MSP payment, which is almost laughable. So I'm almost to the point where, look, the state's got a lot of money. They waste money all the time. They have enough money to build their own water treatment plant when they could have just easily had city water. Well, maybe then they can just buy their own fire truck and somehow staff it. They're gonna keep cutting us on covering our costs to provide them services, and I don't wanna provide them services. You can pay for the services or not pay for the services, but if you're not paying for them, we can't afford to you just can't freeload and take us for granted. So they should pay us what we're worth. They want ambulance and fire protection and sometimes police help, and we do plow the streets in front of the prisons. So that's an aggravating issue, but that's what's going on there.
All right. Well, that's all I had to ask for you today. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. This is always such an important.
Well, and it's budget season, which is good.
Yep.
But I don't want to end on such a negative thing on the MSP thing, because we'll get over that. We'll get through it. But Waupun's really got it going on, and I want to end on that. Like, this budget, we can check some things off the list. We've got the upcoming sculpture rededication thing that I'm super excited about. There's a lot of cool things going on in Waupun. It's a great place to live, work, and play, and I'm glad you came in, Jaden.
Yep. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
You bet.
So that's all I got to say. Yep. And this is Waupun Pioneer News. I'm Jaden Buckles, and this is, of course, Mayor of Waupun Rohn Bishop. Yes. And we will see you next time.
Sounds good.